Hello, and welcome to Movie Mayhem here at Suspiria Works Cinema, where we watch all the movies. Today we have the second part of our director series on Bruno Mattei, with Women's Camp 119. Ignore the cover, we'll get to this later. It really is Women's Camp 119. Again, this is the second Bruno Mattei film that I actually have. And again, we have another nice Nazi exploitation film. Once again, Gabriele Carrara appears in this movie, Mr. Overactor from the last one. And while this is typical Nazi exploitation, I think this is kind of where I get the Mattei vibe. It's a very dark film, more serious than his debut, we'll call it, and yet at the same point it's got a nice story flow, a nice progress, a kind of good feeling by the end of the movie, and I think that's kind of the charm of the Nazi exploitation genre. There have been other films like Asalo where it's just dark, and this is touted as being critically acclaimed or what have you, with its metaphorical ideas, and at its heart it's still an exploitation film. And those are much more dark and serious, whereas Mattei managed to take this film with Women's Camp 119 and keep it serious, but at the same point give it just a touch of the absurd, that it makes it a little bit more entertaining, more fun, something you can watch with your friends and make drinking games out of, but not so silly as to just come off as stupid. The scenes are still impactful, yet not so horrifying that you would actually be offended. The film starts off with a group of prisoners being introduced to a Nazi camp. One of the alternate titles is also a SS Extermination Love Camp, which I kind of like that title. But at any rate, they're introduced to the Nazi guards, and they're all told that they're filthy pig whores, in the excellent English dub, and they're going to be made into experiments, slaves, what have you. One of the girls, however, was a doctor, so she is put in charge of the other prisoners. This is the character of Maria. Maria, once put in charge of the prisoners, meets David. Maria and David's introduction leads to a type of romantic relationship, which adds a nice little bit of heart to the film, and there are characters sympathetic center, so you have a little bit of emotion. The Nazis take us through a series of rooms where we see different experiments, a great way to introduce us to loads of torture or shock value without much plot. And we see a girl whose leg's been broken, and of course she was a dancer, and she hopes it will heal. That's kind of cute. They're doing silly experiments like, oh, her leg's broken, let's see how it heals with no medical treatment. It's kind of shocking, and especially at the time, it's got a good sleaze vibe to it. A woman's uterus is taken out. Your usual stuff. Now, they have a scene where they bring the women in and start beating them with whips. Now, this is done in a lot of other movies, but I'm willing to question if they were really whipping the women in this scene, because it's really hard and does not look hokey. That one scene, it looks like they were doing some genuine S&M going on there. I don't think everything was forced, but it was pretty harsh and very realistic. So the film is much darker than his previous Nazi movie, and it really kind of sucks you into the grimness. It doesn't help that the print I have, which we'll talk about at the end, is very dark and kind of gritty, so it gives that surreal snuff film vibe to it. So again, there's not a lot of plot. It's torture them, do experiments on them, etc., for most of the first half of the movie. There's a great experiment where they're trying to use pilots as test cases, because pilots are important. Now, they've tried some experiments with Polish priests. I don't know why they're Polish, but they specifically call them out as being Polish, because they're men of God, and Nazi pilots are roughly the same because of their closeness to the Fuhrer, who is like God. So, somehow, experimenting on the priest gets them ready to do the experiments on the Nazi pilots. The problem is they have Nazi pilots who crash in the frozen seas in the north, and they want to replace them. So they've got these dead, frozen Nazis, and they're going to restore them through the heat of body warmth. So they put the dead Nazi on a bed and force two of the women to come warm his body. This apparently has no effect, as would be expected. The guy's dead. One of the women, obviously, was not too into it, so she's removed. But the other one, who is an expert at her craft, a professional from Holland, they say, proceeds to make love to the dead man. Now, this is softcore making love, so obviously it's just writhing, but the guy's head moved, and I thought it might have been a mistake in the film, but no. She actually brings the frozen dead pilot back to life with their experiment. So, it kind of leads... It was done so straight-faced, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to laugh, be amazed, or just say, what the hell's happening? I thought that was kind of a cool little thing. They also got this crazy little Igor guy running around that is crazy and tries to rape the different women, but he's beaten down on various occasions, and when they're bad, they let him have his way. So you get a lot of little TNA here and there, but nothing too graphic, just your typical Nazi-sploitation TNA. There's more than one gas chamber scene. One is your typical gas chamber, the others involve some mustard gas. So you've got some very good plot lines leading to the offensive nature of the whole genre. And those are fairly well executed. We learn that the Russians are coming close to capturing this camp from the invasion on the east. And he's told to exterminate everybody. And this is an interesting scene. They have the remaining prisoners lined up, and he's going to execute them. Then they all start singing. He keeps questioning why they're singing. Why are you singing? And it's kind of a nice artistic thing it seems like he was going for here, having some almost symbolism. Of course, they all just get shot, and it doesn't lead nowhere, but it was still a nice attempt and kind of a cool vibe in this type of film. During the Russian invasion, when they get there, Maria, David, and a couple other prisoners escape into the forest, and they're running around, so you get some nice alternative outside exterior forest shots, and they're all eventually recaptured by the Nazis, and they're forced to be executed, except Maria, who gets shot in the leg and gets away at some point. So at this point, everybody's dead. Film fades to black, and we're given a 3 months later, or the commander again is sitting and reminiscing about the lovely time he had at Auschwitz and other such camps. So I'm not sure if the 119 was supposed to be Auschwitz or not, they never say, but at any rate, he comes off as quite vile and reprehensible, where then we get a limping girl with flowers coming up from the distance, and he calls her to him. Of course, it's revealed to be Maria, and she enacts her revenge, which is kind of cool. I like it. I like how Nazis get theirs at the end. And then the film closes with biographical information of some top Nazi leaders. I guess they wanted to legitimize it as a historical film of some kind. Not sure about that. Mattei does take credit for directing this film, so obviously he was a little more proud of this than the last one, or the producers put his name on there. So as a Nazi exploitation film, I like this movie. I think it's pretty good. It's got a solid story to it, some good exploitation, lots of TNA, some good torture, plenty of opportunity to do some drinking games on it. So I will give Women's Camp 119 a nice 7.5 out of 10. Which brings us to the release. We have here Cinema Classics Desert Island Films release of Women's Camp 119. Now, first of all, on the cover, you've got the Gestapo's Last Orgy. You can see right here, an Italian, has a list of actors who are not in 119. This is not an alternate title for this movie. This is just the wrong poster. The disc is correct. Now, this is obviously a VHS transfer that's been burned to a DVD. The VHS transfer is letterbox, so you get the original aspect ratio. It has forced Dutch subtitles across the entire movie. The print is horrible. Maybe an EP VHS at best. Tracking errors throughout the entire thing. I mean, you got scrolling video, scrambled pieces throughout. So that's just a limitation, I'm guessing, of the VHS source that it was acquired from. But they also... horrible compression. I mean, horrible compression. Even in the blacks, you see the artifacting just going non-stop throughout the entire thing. I mean, this is... I don't know of a better version of it available. If anyone does, please let me know. Hopefully someone at some point will get a version and get it out there on a little bit better. I mean, this is garbage, and Desert Island Films has no business releasing these. This is actually available on Amazon and other stores. They got a UPC. I mean, if they were one of the guys, you know, Trash Palace or Revoc or any of those bootleg guys that make the custom DVDs, I wouldn't complain as much. But they're releasing this as a legitimate movie, and it's garbage. 1 out of 10 strictly because I don't know of another version of the film available. It's hard to make out people's facial details. If you want to see the film, honestly, I wouldn't give these clowns money because they certainly aren't paying anybody for this junk. Go ahead and, you know, pirate it somewhere. Don't pay these guys money because this is not cool. I mean, not even the official cover. So, there you have it. That's a review of part 2 in our Bruno Mattei series, Women's Camp 119. I hope you liked the review. Be sure to like the video, give me some comments, subscribe to the channel, and look forward to seeing you here for part 3 of Bruno Mattei. We're going to hit up Sexy Night Report. His next few films are some Mondo sex-style films, so we'll see what we can extract out of those. But we're going to get to the good stuff soon, and I hope to see you next time here at Movie Mayhem.